Wilson was the name of him.
Wilson was the volleyball, correct. So now that you say that. So anyway, we are just onboarding people as we are moving towards our start time here in a few moments. We have a great registration number, so I know we're going to have people joining us and here in the next couple minutes. But so for those of you who have not responded, who would you choose as a Zoom co-host? And the only requirement is that it's a famous person. Who would you co-host a Zoom session with? So we'd love to hear your voice. So feel free to open your microphone and answer that question, or use your chat box if you must. I see a couple people pondering. Todd, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We try to acknowledge as many people as possible, but as we get closer to the 2 o'clock hour, it's not always possible. So thanks for joining us, all of you who've recently set foot in our room. Eric, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I see Marty is joining us, so thank you. You still have a couple minutes to tell us who would you choose to be a Zoom co-host with, and it just has to be a favorite or a famous person. And maybe it's just somebody famous to you. I will open it up a little further. Who would you like to sit in on a Zoom presentation with or a meeting with that might be a famous person? That's our onboarding question for today. Amy Thielander, hello. Thanks for joining us. I see that Bonnie has joined us, Casey as well. Deb, thanks for joining us. See Greg and Jackie as well. Michael, you're all popping in now, and I'm not able to recognize and acknowledge all of you. If you are not having, or if you are not able to hear us, please let us know in the chat box.
We have Eric Johnson would like to have Tom Osborne as his co-host.
I just saw that. Good selection there as well. So good. So Paul Stanley, yes. All names I recognize. So I just thought it would be a fun onboarding question for everybody to kind of ponder. We're still about a minute or two away from getting started. So you've still got a chance to answer our onboarding question for the afternoon. Oh, Marty says he would choose Abraham Lincoln, but no doubt Abraham Lincoln would wonder who Marty was and what is Zoom. So Marty, I think everybody might know who you are. So sorry, you're muted. If you want to unmute there.
I don't think Abraham Lincoln would, Lori, but thank you.
Well, oh, Michelle would choose you, I think, Marty. So
Oh, wow.
That's a testament to your famous status. So Paula, welcome. I see that you've popped in now. So thank you very much for joining us, to all of you who are onboarding with us. So we will continue to let people join us, but I do want to get started because we have such a great lineup of information for you today. So I want to honor everybody's time and get started. Just a reminder to all of you that we are streaming also on our YouTube channel. So if you or a coworker encounter some difficulties with your Zoom feed this afternoon, feel free to switch over there and watch from there. Just some important dates and information that are coming your way. We just wanted to direct you and in your attention to NIFA's website. Our friends over at NIFA host a webinar Wednesday on a weekly basis, and these are virtual events that are devoted to learning more about what is happening in the area of housing around Nebraska. So check out the link that's on your screen and look at those opportunities for further education and information in the housing arena and everything that's going on there. So, okay. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I see a large group have already joined us, so thank you to all of you. My name is Lori Ferguson, and I am with South Central Economic Development District here in Holdridge. And today marks the start of our 4th year of HomeNE Learning Network. And many of you have been faithful in making this learning network meaningful and growth oriented, and we just appreciate that so much. As you have participated, it is our goal that your organization and community have also grown as a result of the information and the opportunities that HomeNE has provided you with. So we have 98 registered participants today. So to those of you who may find yourself new here on our webinar series, we thank you for checking us out. And we hope that you'll find HomeNE informative and that you will become a regular participant. And we also recognize that many of you join us on a regular basis. And so you have become our support network. You are our friends, you are our people that we reach out to if we have questions, comments, and just you have built a relationship with us. So whether this is your first time joining HomeNE or one of just many webinars that you've participated in, we welcome you this afternoon. So today, we have the pleasure of hearing from not just one, but 2 great individuals. And we always have a practice session with our speakers, and had a good time getting acquainted with them this afternoon prior to the kickoff of our 2 o'clock hour. Rhonda Pierce of Twin Cities Development Association and also Western Nebraska Housing Opportunities is joining us. And when Rhonda's presentation has concluded, we will also be hearing from Stacy Fotinos. I practiced that, Stacy, so I hope I got it right. Stacy is with Nebraska Investment Finance Authority, and she is going to be shining a spotlight on NIFA's first home grant program for us later in the webinar. So before I turn it over to Sharon, and she will be introducing our speakers, I just want to encourage you to actively participate in our Q&A that will be following the speakers' presentations this afternoon. Jot down your questions, enter them in the chat box. We'll be monitoring that feature as you respond, and we'll share your comments and questions with our speakers later on. So right now, take the opportunity to use the chat box and tell us what interests you about today's topic, and maybe also where you're from if you have not already checked in with us. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Sharon Hifley. She is the Executive Director here at South Central Economic Development District.
Right. Thanks, Lori. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. It's a great afternoon for January. It's maybe not quite as nice as yesterday, but we'll take it anyway. It's not 30 below. So welcome to our January edition of HomeNE. Kicking off 2021. That's exciting. There's a lot of things that are going to be coming at us this year, and we're going to consider this a good one. South Central Economic Development District serves as the lead agent for these webinars. And when there's not a pandemic, we actually do semi-annual gatherings, and hopefully we'll get together and be with some of you here come early June. HomeNE is a statewide learning network designed with people from all across Nebraska in mind, as we each seek to successfully address our local housing challenges. The purpose of HomeNE is to build a network of individuals and communities with a shared interest in assessing and addressing issues in rural communities. It's to provide a safe space to be vulnerable about what's been tried and to find motivation to take one more step in the right direction. It's to learn from the successes and struggles of others and to take away new ideas or see things through a new lens. And ultimately, it's to inspire you, and hopefully then you will inspire your tribe, because what you do in your community is really valuable. Today, as Lori said, we're joined by Rhonda Pierce and Stacy Fotinos. Rhonda serves as the Executive Director of the Twin Cities Development in Western Nebraska. It's a role that she has held since April of 2002. And she puts her experience and skills to work for a better Nebraska while utilizing all the available resources to create development opportunities in the Western communities. She's a graduate of the University of Wyoming, and her hobbies include golf, walking, pickleball, and spending time with her 2-year-old granddaughter. She is responsible for housing in her office, and it's a role that she was challenged to take several years ago and really embraced that challenge both professionally and personally. So I'm excited to hear from her. I am going to tell you quickly about Stacy, though. Stacy is the Home Ownership Operations Manager at NIFA, Nebraska Investment Finance Authority. She has over 20 years experience in the mortgage lending industry. Her background includes providing support and training for processing and compliance teams, development of internal procedures, and management of loan pipelines. Her current responsibilities at NIFA include the management of the compliance review process and supervision of the compliance review team. So welcome to our HomeNE Learning Network, and Rhonda, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thanks. As Lori said, I'll be celebrating my 20th year with Twin Cities Development in April. So I've been here a while, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that housing and this kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. While I did this personally long before I came to Twin Cities Development, my first interaction, my dad used to build houses a long, long time ago, and I grew up building houses. In fact, we lived in a new house all the time because we'd barely get it done and he'd sell it and we'd be moving. So in my years of growing up, we moved 17 times before I graduated from high school. So we were always moving and always moving into a different house and always rehabbing houses. So that was kind of in my blood. And I actually went to college for an accounting degree, and I was an accountant and a CPA, and that was a little boring. So when the job came open for the development, the economic development group, I actually applied and I've been doing that ever since. And when they hired me, I said, I'll probably be there about 4 years because I'd been in every job for 4 years. But we've been fortunate enough to keep it entertaining and active and challenging. And she said, I kind of came kicking and screaming into housing, and I'll just briefly get into that. Richard Byer was the development director for the state at the time for DED, and he wanted economic development groups to get more into housing. That was in 2004, so 16 years ago. And I said, Richard, I don't know anything about the housing paperwork. He goes, we'll help you through it. So since that time, we've been the recipient of a lot of grants over the time. So we'll get into that, but I've also done a lot of personal rentals and rehabs and so forth. So I kind of had fun with this, so we'll just go back and forth. And if you have questions, they're going to wait till the end, but we'll just go into it. So we're talking about the topic being breathing life into grandma's house, old house. And Sherry. It's not getting off the home page. Okay, so grandma's houses, sometimes they're really neat and charming, they're tidy, they're immaculate. And those are few and far between because you know, they're a challenge. There's a lot of chopped up rooms to deal with. There's not a lot of open concepts, which is everybody's dream, is to have an open floor plan, an open concept. But there's not a lot of houses out there, so you have to deal with what you have available. You know, these are a couple of houses that personally I have owned, super charming from the outside and super look great. And then on the inside, they're kind of a little mini disaster. Sometimes they have pretty little gardens, and then sometimes not. Sometimes you get a house that you can't even see the house because of all the weeds or all the trees that have deteriorated in the landscaping. So especially in today's time, we're finding that there's very few houses available, and the ones that are there are ones that really need a lot of rehab. Our inventory of houses that are available has drastically reduced, and we're just having a harder time finding those houses. So we kind of have to deal with what we're given. Sometimes just a coat of paint and siding can do wonders. As you can see, these houses are probably not bad houses, but the choices and the paint need some major attention. Sometimes we've done this house. It had a brick facade and it needed a paint job and a stucco job. So some of these things require a little more effort than others. And I'm going to show you the before on that one in a little bit. A lot of times you got to love the old days. You have a lot of rooms that have a lot of paneling. Sometimes you have bathrooms, they don't have showers in them. They just have the old bathtub. A lot of things that we touch, both me personally and through our work. You're tearing out paneling, you have maybe 7 layers of wallpaper, a lot of things that you have to get through to start the work before you can even see what you have to work with. So that's a lot of the challenges, just getting to the base project so you can get started. You gotta love those bowling alley basements. And again, more paneling. It seems like a lot of the older houses, they just created this one great big room and didn't do anything with it. It was just a huge room. Again, lots of paneling. We put a lot of people to work doing demo. So kitchens. Kitchens are another area that we run into a lot. I don't know if you can see this very good, but it has the lovely marbled green look countertop, and then the cabinets are real dark, but they're solid wood and they're in great condition. So what I tell people is a little bit of paint, a little bit of hardware can do wonders. This is painting cabinets that were formerly a dark wood, but the cabinets are solid, really good cabinets. So changing the cabinets with paint, you got to make sure you properly strip the old varnishes and use the proper kinds of paints, but a little bit of elbow grease and time, you can save a lot of money. Bathrooms are another area that are just fun, and they really don't have to be that expensive. Sometimes you can just put a new countertop and new bath vanities in and just totally transform a bathroom. But I'm going to show you several. I like ugly bathrooms. We'll go into that in a minute, but you can update new light fixtures. The old look of the gold with the flowers. I probably have a room full of those if I kept all of them and could put them all together, but just updating it with a simple fixture to make it nice and new and modern. And those don't cost a lot. Just updating appliances sometimes. You can see the cabinets, they're in good condition, but you've got an old countertop. So updating appliances and the countertop can do a lot to make it more sellable to a wider market. I always say that you should definitely remove any bath fixture that's either pink, blue, green, or yellow. Now, some people are saying that's coming back in style, but they'll never be in any of the rehabs that I do. Those are outdated and they're beyond their use of time. And so I always say, rip them out. And we do have a couple of unique things I'm going to get into, but there's a lot of ways to make your rehab an inexpensive rehab. So I'll get into that in a minute. Bathrooms, there's some more pretty bathrooms. This one's lavender and blue and yellow. Here's another picture, green and aqua color or turquoise, but I could show you ugly bathrooms all day long. The thing I want to stress is that hiring a professional is hire a professional to do your plumbing. If you have a plumbing guy that's just changing out a sink, that's fine. But if you're moving a toilet or moving a faucet or relocating the tub to make it more functional, hire a professional. It costs us about $1,600 to $1,800 to put in a new shower, and that's well worth it. It's well worth the money, and you know that it's going to be guaranteed and the workmanship's going to be done right. Tips for saving money on rehabs. A lot of people refer to me as a shopper. Some people just refer to me as a cheapskate, and that's okay. I shop a lot of closeouts and discontinued items. We let all of our local hardware and lumber companies know that that's what we're doing. And we have 2 or 3 companies that call us if they're closing out like last year's model of vanities or one that doesn't sell real well. They call. We put in a 16-unit apartment building and we put in new vanities and we paid 25% of the original cost. We got 75% off on all of them. And they also have given us a deal where Home Depot and Menards used to do a penny closeout. And what that means is if it gets to a penny, they have to destroy the product. But we've talked to them about what we do and that we're a nonprofit. And so they've allowed the staff to call us if they have materials that they're going to destroy and they sell it to us for a penny. So don't be afraid to ask for sale items and you're helping them out too, because you're getting rid of items they want to get off their shelves. And then don't be afraid to use leftover materials to do something unique. This next slide I'm going to show you is all bathroom enclosures that we used with leftover tile that we had from maybe floors or entryways, but we did two really nice, they look like custom built showers, but we used different materials. As you can see, the one, I kind of debated about this one with the brown and the gray, but there's two different shades of gray tiles, and then we used brown flooring planks to offset it, and it really looks really neat, and it matches the floor. So the floor matches these tiles here. So it really tied it all together, and it looks really, really nice. And this is in my low income housing project. So they're getting a custom shower with leftover tile. Some updates that don't really cost very much money and that I encourage people to do. These are the things that, you know, very, very inexpensive. Updating light fixtures. And again, we use fixtures that maybe they're clearancing or they've got a markdown on. Tearing off wallpaper is always good advice. Sometimes you may be tearing off for layers and layers. And if you have too many layers, put a small thin sheet of drywall over it, because then you're just extending your light boxes. But if you have too many layers and it's really hard to get off, just use a real thin piece of drywall and have somebody come in and put that over it. It's very inexpensive. New paint, tearing out old bathrooms, tearing out old shed carpet, green carpet, the rust colored carpets, all those are easy to do. We hire a lot of day laborers in our work that aren't employees. We may just hire them for a day, a week, 2 weeks, and we pay them to do a lot of demo work. Demo of paneling, drywall, that sort of thing. Those are very inexpensive things that go a long way in updating the houses. Now, the things that do cost a lot and that you want to make sure that you have investigated what needs to be done is plumbing and electrical. A lot of times we'll replumb the whole house. Like if we're doing a purchase rehab resale and it has copper pipes, we'll update the entire house to PEX. Electrical, if it has an old electrical box, if it has a fuse box, that thing's going away and we're updating the electrical. But that can be $5,000 to $6,000 on a house. If it has foundation issues, I usually get either a firm that's a structural engineering firm, or the city inspector sometimes can help you. If it's got a lot of foundation issues, sometimes we'll demo the property rather than fix it up. And that's something you need to look up, you know, at front. If it's beyond repair, tear it down and put a new house there. Sewer lines is another big one. We didn't used to camera sewer lines before we bought a house, and we ran into having to replace $6,000 to $7,000 sewer lines. So that's now something that we do up front. Roofs. We get a lot of hail in Western Nebraska, so we don't really have problems with old roofs because usually they get replaced about every 10 years because of a hailstorm. But every once in a while we have a house that has a really bad roof. We have to make sure that is it just the roof, or is it going clear down to the sheeting? And is it, you know, a problem that you have to replace sheeting and the shingles? That's something we look at pretty closely. Furnaces, again, one of those things that you may think it's working fine, but that's, you know, a $5,000 to $8,000 ticket item. So they're pretty expensive if you have to make these kinds of repairs. I like to tell people to create a team of subcontractors. And again, we've been doing this since 2004. When we first started out, all we did was a down payment assistance program. We helped people buy a house, and we've helped about 300 people buy a house in our area. But as you get more familiar and get more comfortable with the housing programs and the housing DED applications, we went from housing DPA to rehab, purchase rehab resale. And then we went from purchase rehab resale to rental acquisition rehab. And so again, this has been a 16-year endeavor to go from one project to another. So we've done we've done a lot of rehab, and we've done a lot of projects. So I'm going to get to those at the end. But your electricians, your plumbers, your HVAC guys, your flooring, if you have people that can do that, tile, carpet, wood, a good drywaller. We have a couple of good drywallers that we use, and don't be afraid you need to get competitive bids, because a lot of times it's totally based on timing. And if people have open slots, they want work. So one time last winter, we had an apartment building we were working on, and we had 16 apartments. Well, the drywallers both really wanted the project. So what we ended up doing is we split the building in half, and we gave one drywaller half the project and the other drywaller half the project. Now, they spend a lot of time going back and forth, comparing each other's work and saying, well, he didn't do this right and you didn't do this right. And that was part of it, but it ended up saving us a lot of money. And by having two contractors in the building at the same time, we got them done quickly. Instead of one guy dragging out for 2 months, they both spent about 2 weeks and got it done a lot quicker. It depends on if you're subbing everything out. We have a small team that we do our rehab with. It's a really small team. We have 1 full-time employee, 2 part-time employees. We have an HVAC guy that works part-time. He's a full-time employee at the hospital as their HVAC person, but he wanted to work a few more hours. So we hire him and use him as we have projects. But then we have several laborers that we hire, like I said, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month or 2. It just depends on how much work we have. And sometimes they're tenants that owe us money for rent, so they work off the rent. But we also do a program that very few people have done. And as I work with the jail inmate work crew a lot, and they're free. So they can work for municipalities and they can work for nonprofits. Now, we have not been able to have them since COVID, so we haven't had the jail crew since March. But prior to that, probably the last 8 or 10 years, I used to get the women's work crew every Monday for all day Monday. So you can get a lot of stuff done with 3 or 4 people for a whole day. We had the men's crew, we'd usually have 2 or 3 times a month, but they did almost a good share of our demolition at our Eastwood apartment project. And again, we have not been able to have them since March. So that's been a real deficit for us, because we're used to having projects and used to having things that they can come in and just, a crew of 5 or 6 guys can do a lot of demo work in a short amount of time. Again, things we always do before we look to buy a property, and this is whether you're doing it for an organization that's a nonprofit like ours, or if I'm doing this personally for myself. I always get title insurance to make sure that the title is free and clear. We didn't used to, but we always camera the water and sewer lines now, because of some experiences where we got into a $5,000 or $6,000 expense that really we weren't expecting. We inspect the electrical. A lot of times that's myself and my guys. If we're in question, we may bring an electrician in. We always look at the HVAC and check out the roof. So those are some of the things we always do. And if we're dealing with an older house and lead-based paint issues, and if it's one of our rehabs, we bring in somebody to look at the lead-based paint and whether we're going to have to do issues there as well. So how do you budget for rehab? And my board always asks me, well, what's this going to cost and how much are we going to end up? Because we do like to break even on our projects. And what I tell people is take your purchase price and all the costs of your major and smaller updates that you know of, double that amount to account for labor, and add about 20% for all the things you forgot, because literally you'll have every little thing that you can think of that can come into play. But the big thing I do is, when we're looking at a property, I take into account the neighborhood. And the neighborhood that house sits in is probably more of a factor than how much you actually put into the rehab. You need to make sure that property is going to appraise for what you have in it after the updates. And we've done some in areas of town where we've done like 4 or 5 houses on a block. And sometimes we didn't worry as much about, whether we were going to make money or not. We were just trying to clean up the neighborhood. But in some cases, to operate, and once your program's done and your grant's been closed out, if you have program income coming in, then you can use that to do other projects. So we are very cognizant of trying to make or break even, make a little bit of money or break even on our projects. So the neighborhood it's in is a big factor. And I'm not saying don't be shy of neighborhoods that need a lot of work, because that's actually the most needed. And we've done a lot of those. It's just make sure that you're aware of it before you go too far into the project. Now I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about work. So WNHO stands for Western Nebraska Housing Opportunities. And like I said, after we did DPA for several years, we explored and we decided to get into purchase, rehab, resale. And what we try to do is we purchase vacant, rundown properties and we fix them up and we bring them up to standard and sell those to income qualified families. In that time, we've probably done over 50 rehab projects, and we usually pick the worst one in the neighborhood. And we've done a lot of tear downs too, if they're too bad to rehab. And I want to just show you some of those. There's a lot of options. And to keep clear, TCD and WNHO are two different entities. We have two different board of directors. TCD is a 501c4 and WNHO is a 501c3. And TCD does do some construction projects, but they're all market rate and market value properties. WNHO does the low and affordable housing projects. And so there is some confusion sometimes. TCD has the employees, WNHO doesn't have a single employee. We just get reimbursed when we work on WNHO projects. So I know people are always confused about that in our own community, and sometimes even my own board members get confused. Like, is that WNHO or is that TCD? So these are some of the rehabs we've done for either WNHO or TCD. And like this one, it was a really tiny little house. The other houses in the neighborhood were fairly decent. So we added this addition onto the house, resided it, redid the inside. And, you know, it's a really nice little house now. This one was a complete makeover. And this was kind of a unique story. This house sits directly across from one of our brand new elementary schools. So it's in a great neighborhood, great location. I mean, literally the front door and the sidewalk match up to the elementary school. So a young family that has young kids would be perfect. But the people who lived here were older and they said, we don't have the capacity to fix this up. We don't know how to do the repairs. We just want to move to an apartment building and not have to worry about it. Well, we happened to own the apartment building that they wanted to move to. So we bought the house from them and they are in our apartment building. And this was one of our major rehabs. We actually enclosed the porch, put in some windows. It's a complete makeover. We have a stucco job that we did, and I'll show you some of the interior pictures. New electrical through the home. The kitchen was updated, the flooring. I mean, basically just a brand new home for a young family, hopefully. This is a rehab that we bought that is in progress. The house is in pretty good shape. It's a nice brick home, has a new roof, but the garage is in horrible condition. But right now, we're not ready to take this rehab on because we have two other projects in front of it. So the tenants are actually, the people who are in the house right now want to buy this house. So they're actually doing some remodeling and starting to do some rehabs in addition to some of the things we're doing. So it's kind of a unique situation. The gal that lives there actually trades cleaning hours for us and does some things on the side. But this is one of our first rehabs that we did in the community. And you can see painted it a different color, put in new windows, a new porch. The whole inside was redone. It was in a major intersection of town that is a widely, heavily trafficked street. So a lot of people could see the renovations. And it seems like whenever we do reno projects in the neighborhood, it seems like all of a sudden other neighbors start cleaning up their houses and doing some repairs. So that's kind of neat to see. This was a burned out house that the people had a fire and they collected the insurance money. The house was beyond repair. We purchased the home for I think the price of the lot, and demoed the house and put a modular home that we purchased from the city. And this was the It used to be the Dove's house, which was the Center for Domestic Violence Against Women. The problem with the Dove's house is once people found out where the Dove's house was, it was no longer a safe location. So the city got rid of that program and started just doing voucher payments to different hotels so that the people that were impacted by domestic violence weren't in danger. So again, we had a burned out house that was abandoned. It sat there for a long time, and that's now got a nice looking property sitting on it. This is another similar situation where we had a burned out house that the family was out of state and the kids did not want to deal with it. So we built a new home on that lot. So this was one of my favorites. There's two houses in this before picture, this house here and then this big white one behind it. And those were drug houses. We knew there was activity going on there. There was a lot of questionable actions and people coming and going at all hours of the night. So we bought both houses from the same landlord, and she was so thankful. She knew that it had been a problem, but she didn't know how to get rid of them. And so this was done totally outside of any grant or anything with DED, but this is just a project we did that we work with the local high school to construct new houses on a separate project. And so you can see this is a house the high school built, and then beside it, you can see another one being built. So this got rid of two problem homes and built 2 new homes. And we did 4 on the same block. So this next one is on the same block. This was the little house that was there. And then we replaced it with a new modular. And we have a modular home company in Gering. So that made it, really handy to, we've torn down several homes and been able to put modulars in their place. This one had minor rehab. So this was just a little house on the same block. So we did 4 houses on the same block. And okay, I'm going to back up real quick. So basically, I'll just stop here. So basically we did down payment, then we did purchase, rehab, resale. Well, then we had somebody come to us and they had this big apartment building that they didn't know what to do with because we had helped Summit Christian College find a new location. And this was the former Summit Christian College. So we helped them find a new location to expand and build in. But this building was built in the 60s and it still had 60s architecture, 60s interiors. So we bought the college building from them after we'd gone to several private entities to try to buy it. It's a 4-level building. It's got a garden level and then 3 stories above ground. We built 16 apartments. There was 3 1-bedrooms, 10 2-bedrooms, and 3 3-bedroom units. And that was our largest grant that we've ever received from DED. We had $998,000. And you can see these are builder grade cabinets. This was our very first project and we kept it very inexpensive. We were pretty nervous about it. In fact, I had a board member that resigned our board over it because he said he just didn't feel comfortable because we went from such a leap from going from purchase, rehab, resale to these apartment buildings that he didn't feel comfortable. But we were able to build the project. We've completed our 10-year period of affordability. So it's all operating on its own. We're now starting to have to do some renovations because it's about 10 years old and we're having some refrigerators and water heaters that are starting to go out. But this was our very first project. And oops. This was our second project, Broadway Suites, and our downtown loft project. Our offices are actually located in this building. We're at 1620 Broadway. Our offices are on the main floor, along with an entrepreneur center, and our Panhandle Area Development District has an office here. So we did this in 2 phases because you can kind of tell this used to be a bank building. This would be a phase, and then this other part, it's kind of split into 2 buildings. So we split it into 2 phases. In phase 1, we got $286,000 from phase 1 and $433,000 phase 2 from the state with DED. So we have 6 affordable and income qualified units and 9 market rate units. And in total, we have an efficiency, 8 1-bedrooms and 6 2-bedroom units. And you can see from the first ones that we did to this one, we've upgraded our finishings a little bit. And then the next project we got is a super low income development. It's called Eastwood Apartments. It was a 100-year-old building. A realtor ran it and was running it trying to keep a manager and just running as like manage the property. But the building had gotten so bad, as you can see from this bottom picture. This is what people were living in when we bought it in 2016. So we were able to go in and we had to relocate tenants. We had to give them different places to live. We had to relocate about 6 tenants. And what's kind of funny about this project is those tenants that were relocated actually ended up moving back to the area into apartments that were in poor condition compared to the houses that we put them in, because that was their neighborhood. So phase 1 we did with our own money. We did about $400,000 in improvements, and we did 11 apartments to start with. But we also updated all the plumbing, the HVAC, the water lines, the sewer lines, the electrical, sprinkler system. And then in phase 2, we applied to DED for funding, and we got $500,000 to do an additional, the additional rest of the building. So we now have 26 units there. It took us about 1.5 years to get approved for Section 8 because it was in such poor condition, but we stuck with it and we got it done. So now we have 26 apartments, and the Lieutenant Governor came out for our open house on September 30th. And by the end of October, we had all the units rented except 4. So there is a need for low income, and there is a place for it. This was a very big project, and it was very challenging, but we were able to successfully give people a very affordable place to live. Our rents are from $400 up to $700 a month, and that includes all the utilities. Our last project, this is some of the demo work. Eastwood had all plaster and lath walls, so we had to tear all that out. This was phase 1, and they're clean, nice units. Those were built about 4 years ago, but this is phase 2. And as you can see, again, we've upgraded our skill and our interior finishes. We've gone to all rubberized vinyl flooring, and we're able to find a cabinet company that's a lot more affordable. We were able to get some really nice cabinets for a lot less money. So the longer you're in this, the more you're going to find out that you can do a lot of different things. You just have to, you kind of have to go through the muddy waters until you can kind of trudge through it and figure out how to get things to work for you. Our last project I'm going to show you, this is a TCD project. This is Northfield Apartments, and we had an assisted living facility, Northfield Retirement Communities, that had built a new facility in Scottsbluff, and they didn't know what to do with their old facility. They had tried to get private people to buy it, and they were not successful. So they came to us, we kind of rejected it. And after they tried for like 1 year to try to get somebody to buy it, they came back to us, and our board went ahead and approved to buy it. So we have 65 units, 1 and 2 bedroom units, they're market rate. But we bought the whole building. It's 104,000 square feet. We bought the building for $500,000, which is $5 a square foot. It's a steal, but we probably put more into it in updating it than we bought it for. And we've got about 55 units rented right now after 4.5 years, but we have a lot of short-term furnished units in this building that we use. We do students that are in nursing programs, dental programs. We have traveling nurses and interns. We have a lot of people that come in for different jobs that maybe their family isn't ready to move here yet. The guy's going to be here for about 5 or 6 months before the family moves, or they haven't sold their house yet. So we do a lot of furnished apartments, and they're short-term basis. So again, this is kind of above and beyond the scope of the Breathing Life into Grandma's Home, but tells you a little bit about some of the capacity. There's another building behind this building, and we have first right of refusal to buy that building. And we are taking part of the building and putting in we had a group of families come to us that have children with adult mental disabilities and intellectual disabilities. They may have Down syndrome. They may be autistic, but they could live alone if they had someone to supervise them. So we're going to be building in this building a 14-unit independent living facility for adults with mental disabilities. And we were successful in getting a $500,000 grant from DED for that. So that's going to be, we're in the process of doing demo work, and it's at the fire marshal for review. And so we're hoping to be bidding that project really soon. And in addition to that, we are applying for rural workforce housing funds. So it's kind of a busy office. We only have four full-time people and a part-time person on staff, but we get a lot of things done. And I am the executive director, but I am mostly in charge of housing projects and grants and running those right now because it's just, we've gotten into it so much. I guess I would just say, if you're thinking about doing something, just start something and it'll grow from there. And my contact information's attached. I've had a lot of people, have called me over the years, and I just kind of walk through what we've done, but it's grown and it's grown a lot. So with that, I think that's it.
Thank you, Rhonda. Great information. And I've already got some questions for you at the conclusion of Stacy's presentation here shortly. But Stacy, I'm going to throw it your way now if you'd like to take over.
Perfect. Thank you. I don't know that my presentation is going to be quite what Rhonda's was, but we'll give it our best shot here. Again, my name is Stacy Fatinos. I am the Homeownership Operations Manager for NIFA. We are located, our primary office is in Lincoln. So I'm happy to be here today. Thank you for including us in your time this afternoon. Sherry, I'm going to have you go ahead and advance. A little bit about NIFA. Our mission is to provide Nebraskans a broad range of financial resources for homeownership, rental housing, agriculture, manufacturing, medical, and other community development endeavors. We also provide technical assistance for activities related to those areas while preserving and growing the asset base used to provide those resources. Go ahead and advance, Sherry. I came today to talk to you a little bit about our First Home Grant Program. This is something that we started in September, I believe, of 2020. It does have some restrictions to it. We do say that the person or family that applies for the grant program must meet our 50% area median income guideline. And this is a first mortgage financing program for buyers with a total household income that doesn't exceed 50% of the area median income. We look at income a little differently than a mortgage underwriter does. We don't look at qualifying income. We look at all sources of income for the household. So that makes us a little different. The amount of the grant funds available per household is $5,000. And again, that is a grant. It is not due for repayment in any way. We do require that our buyers be first-time home buyers. And I'll talk about what that looks like in just a second. Loan types that you can use for this First Home Grant Program are conventional financing, FHA and VA, as well as USDA rural development loans. Our definition of a first-time home buyer is that a borrower cannot have owned a home and lived in it as their principal residence within the past 3 years. We do allow for investment property ownership. It's perfectly okay as long as the borrower has not occupied it as their primary residence in the past 3 years. And we do check for that. Go ahead, Sherry. Regarding our household income limits, NIFA includes, as I said earlier, we include income for all household members who are age 18 and over who are going to occupy that home. We look at every source of income, base pay, overtime pay, commissions, bonuses, salary in lieu of benefits, part-time seasonal work, all of that. We do have certain purchase price limits. For our non-target areas, our single unit properties, our purchase price limit is $283,000. In a target area, that purchase price is increased to $346,000. The last item on this slide is about homebuyer education. We are a firm believer in homebuyer education in our program, and we do require that all occupying borrowers, they are required to complete homebuyer ed prior to closing on their home loan. We have several providers that we use for homebuyer education, and you can locate those on our NIFA.org website. Go ahead, Sherry. We do get questions about where a property needs to be located in order to participate in our grant program. Just know that if it is within the state limit, the state boundaries of the state of Nebraska, it is eligible for our grant program. The property must meet all agency guidelines, but NIFA does not have any specific property overlays. So it just must meet secondary market agency guidelines. Go ahead, Sherry. A couple of program resources for us regarding the grant program are available on our website. It is available at NIFA.org under the Lender tab and under Training and Marketing Materials. We'd be delighted to have you go and visit our website, take a look around, see what we have to offer, and take a look at our grant program. Go ahead, Sherry. And lastly, this is where we are located. You can find us at 1230 O Street in Lincoln. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are Central Time. So please, absolutely, if anybody has questions about our grant program, how to become a participating lender in our organization, questions about any of our other programs, please reach out to us. We are delighted to have that conversation with you.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. I greatly appreciate that information. So we're going to turn it back to our participants now, and we've got several questions already directed. So Rhonda, I have a question for you here, but if anyone else has questions, feel free to open up your microphone or enter those in the chat box, and we'll get to those as we can. But the first question is for Rhonda. What are a couple changes that maybe you have seen over the years in regards to what people are looking for in a house?
We deal mostly, like you said, with first-time home buyers. So I think first-time home buyers want something as nice or nicer than their parents have. And that's a challenge when the income levels don't fit that. So the open concept is a big one. I think as long as the house is neat and clean, they want something move-in ready. They don't like to make repairs. So that's something we've seen, is that people will shy away from properties that need any kind of work. They want it done.
Okay, that's the big one, obviously. Yeah. Do you see families wanting something different, like, for instance, multi-generational living, or is it, what are you seeing?
Not so much. When we first started doing our purchase rehab resale, we didn't even show the house until it was finished. And then it seems like the more houses we sold. So one of the problems we had in our last grant, we did an application for $400,000 to do 5 homes. But because we were selling the houses before we were even done with them, like we had a buyer, and so the houses were selling very quickly. So one of the problems we ran into is when you have when you have program income come in, we ended up having to spend almost $800,000 and do 5 or 6 homes, or we did 7 or 8 homes to try to get that money spent, because we had to use the program income first. So I know that's a challenge with, especially in our area, there's so few houses available right now that a lot of times if people find out you have a house that you're remodeling, they want to buy it like before it's even sold. Or before it's even done. So that was one of our challenges, mostly for my work crew, because they would get frustrated. It's like, why don't we just finish the house first and then put it on the market? So no, I haven't seen a lot of multi-generational people living together, but a lot of young families wanting to buy a home.
Okay. What advice would you give to a community that wants to start a nonprofit housing corporation?
Go for it. I think there is a lot of, there's a lot to be learned. But again, as somebody, we didn't start with purchase rehab resale. We started with down payment, and we learned what houses, like we do a down payment with repairs program. So we do some repairs to bring those homes up to code. So we learned a lot about what houses needed before we even got into the purchase rehab resale. I would suggest that they work with another community or another organization that's doing it first, so they can learn, and then get some firsthand experience by working with somebody that's done it before, or kind of shadowing them, I guess.
Okay. Stacy, I have a question for you. Who is the target audience that would reach back out to NIFA? You mentioned becoming a participating lender. Is that the proper channel to go through if someone is interested in the first home grant program? Do they have, how does a home buyer access the funds?
That is an excellent question. And we actually work with a statewide group of participating lenders. That's how we provide the financing in the background to those customers. So it would be a first mortgage program that comes through a participating lender.
Okay. And those participating lenders can be learned through the link that you gave us, or how do we find out who they are?
Absolutely. On our NIFA.org website, there is a list of our participating lenders across the state. And if anybody has a question about that in any of the organizations that you are involved in and want to know how to find that resource, please reach out to me. I'm happy to direct you to the location that you need so that we can get you connected with the right person.
Okay. Is there a time frame attached to these program funds? Are they available year round? Is there a how do I say it, a competitive cycle to get access to these funds? How does that work?
Well, right now we started this with a certain dollar amount that we are able to participate with. Our goal is to utilize all the funds by the end of our fiscal year and then launch the program, continue the program, I guess I should say, not launch again, but continue the program with another funding source within NIFA. Right now we have issued, I will say we have the capability of doing 40 grant loans. We have issued 8 so far. So the opportunity for somebody who falls into that category and could benefit from those grant funds is still available.
Okay, wonderful. So there is time, but be sure and take advantage of it. So
Please.
I have a question for Rhonda again. Is the purpose of the nonprofit status to apply for grants, take in charitable donations, or both?
The Western Nebraska Housing Opportunities, our main goal is to provide safe, decent, affordable housing for families that are at low to moderate income households. We have not received any donations other than a couple of times we've had like a bank that maybe gave us a donation to do Eastwood apartments, like before we got DED funding. So we have been a recipient of First National Bank's community grant program for affordable housing. Other than that, we've never received grants, or we've never received any charitable donations. We pretty much operate on the premise of, and this is something that people need to know, is we built Summit Apartments like 12 years ago. That income sustains our organization. We have not applied for a grant to run our operation since before I came. It was in 2004, they got a grant to assist with the office, but we've not had to have one since then because we're able to self-sustain off of the incomes from some of the projects that we've been successful with. So the rental rehab is one that I would promote to organizations after you get some experience, because then you have a constant stream of income to support that organization.
Okay, good, thank you. Eileen asked a question, and Eileen helped me out here, but the question is, are there similar down payment programs available for people with disabilities? You've both kind of talked about assistance perhaps, so I'm not sure maybe if that's directed towards Stacy or maybe even Rhonda. Either one of you have something in mind for maybe down payment assistance for individuals with disabilities?
Well, I can just say that we don't discriminate. If they have a disability, they're going to be eligible. But with our down payment assistance program, if they need the home modified to make it accessible for them, that's some of the money that we can help with repairs. So we don't have a separate program. I mean, they would qualify under our regular down payment assistance program, but they may have some modifications that may be needed to make it accommodating for them.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Eileen, did that answer your question, or were you looking for more information?
I was wondering, is specific to NIFA, you know, if someone, and for example, I had a friend who was recently divorced, has to sell the marital home and is looking for a new home to live in, but she has disabilities and was asking me, you know, are there programs that help with down payment assistance for someone like that would be purchasing a home for the first time as a single parent, have disabilities and have that kind of a need. But it wasn't necessarily her first home that she's ever purchased because she had purchased a home with a previous spouse.
Okay, so I will tell you that NIFA we do have some exceptions to our first-time homebuyer rule, and she may fall into one of those. Divorce is one of the exceptions to our first-time homebuyer rule. As far as the disabilities portion goes, we don't have a specific program that is defined for people with disabilities. We do have, if she wouldn't qualify for our first home grant program, for example, we do have a down payment assistance program also that, you know, if she has questions about that, any member of our homeownership team would be delighted to talk to her about that. But we call it our homebuyer assistance program, where you bundle a small second mortgage to help with down payment and closing costs. Does that help answer your question, Eileen?
Yes, thank you. I will be sure to share that with her.
Thank you.
Good, good. Thank you. So what other questions do you possibly have for our presenters today? Feel free to open your microphone.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say this was more than I asked or imagined. Thank you so much, Rhonda. It's thrilling. And you say it wasn't all grandma's old house, but wow, the way you have impacted quality of life in your community. And it all started because you said yes to a challenge and started somewhere. And I hope people really heard that, you know. We can't do it all, but we can do something, and activity breeds activity. So this was fantastic. Thank you so much for what you do and for sharing it with us.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
again, you can blame Richard Byer if you know him. He's with the Nebraska Banking Association. So I give him a hard time a lot because he kind of forced me into this. So, but we've taken it on and we've grown it. So
Good, good. Well, Rhonda and Stacy, we definitely, as Sharon indicated, have appreciated your participation today. So I know it's on your slides, but if somebody wants to get a hold of you, could you just reiterate your contact information?
Rhonda, do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
go ahead, go ahead.
So if you want to reach out to NIFA, our main switchboard number is area code 402-434-3900. Our email address in the homeownership department, we have a general email inbox, and that is homeownership@nifa.org. And we can get those directed to the right person.
Wonderful. And Rhonda, how about you?
So our phone number is 308-632-2833. And my direct email is director@tcd for Twin Cities Development, ne.org.
Okay, wonderful. Our speakers represent the opposite ends of the state, but it's great that you all have a common love and theme about housing in your daily work. So as we begin to wrap up today, I just want to draw your attention to our website. Past HomeNE webinars will be found at this website, and today's webinar will also be eventually there, probably within the next day or two would be my guess. Sherry handles that, so if I'm wrong, I will take full blame for that. But we find that a lot of people are taking advantage of those webinars and watching them. So feel free to check that out. And just learn more about housing in general. So also our next event is going to be February the 18th. Once again, the third Thursday of every month. And we are having Paula Jensen with Dakota Resources join us on that date. And her topic is going to center around the theme of convening your community and why is it necessary. And we just felt that it's the beginning of the new year. Resolutions are hopefully still in place, that it might be a great opportunity to talk about bringing your leaders and your members of your community together to begin talking about priorities for the future in terms of housing and et cetera. So I appreciate Paula so much, and she always brings some spark and energy to anything she does. So we are looking forward to having her join us on February 18th. So Rhonda and Stacy, once again, I greatly appreciate you and the information that you presented to us today. Just know that you are greatly appreciated. So with that, are there any last questions or comments from anyone? Well, if not, I just once again thank you all for joining us and taking time out of a busy day and a busy month and joining us here, and have a great rest of the day and week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.